voters in ranked choice voting cities tend to elect more diverse candidates. I think in New York, we have a really diverse city council, but we don't have gender parity in city council. And in ranked choice voting cities, they've managed to achieve 50% or more on their councils of those seats being held by women. Like, we have only had one person of color as the mayor of New York City. We've never had a female mayor for New York City. In ranked choice voting cities, you tend to see really different types of people who can run for office, who can win, and who can hold those highest offices. And just as I was saying, this is what, like, the idea that New Yorkers like, things that are new. New Yorkers also really value that diversity. They think that's important to see. And it's something that we have seen just across the board when we've been talking to voters, when we've been trying to figure out, okay, what's going to motivate people to vote? They really like this idea. And we think that's pretty great. So again, even if your top choice doesn't win, you can help choose who does. You can vote for your top choice, and you don't have to worry about who's likely to win. I was voting for someone, in the presidential election. I'll just use that as an example. In the primaries, where I was like, I don't think this person's going to win, but they're really my favorite candidate. And I could have voted for that person in a ranked choice voting system without worrying about what that end result was going to look like. As I said, candidates are much more likely to try to campaign to be, your second choice, your third choice vote, to be like, hey, remember me in the voting booth. And this leads to campaigns starting to work together. As Dr. Saeed mentioned, we see this in other cities a lot. Voters haven't experienced it here yet. But in elections where candidates are vying for your one and only vote, there's an incentive to be a little more negative, or to try to make sure that people maybe aren't turning out to vote if they're going to turn out to vote for your opponent. In ranked choice voting, you see more candidates working together. Like, all right, either vote for me second or first, and vote for this other person second or first, because, we have really similar ideas about that we want to see happen in office, which I think is also really interesting just in terms of how we get represented in office. And as we said, in cities with ranked choice voting, we tend to see really diverse candidates running and winning for higher office, and we see more female candidates at every level of government than what we see in New York City. All right, so just some next steps, and to tell you a little bit about what we are focused on. As I mentioned, our big focus for the past few months has been on these Queen's special elections, because you guys are the pioneers. You were using ranked choice voting first in New York City. Then we have a couple of Bronx special elections that are in March. We're really using these elections to learn as much as we can, because we have a big primary election coming up in June, where we have every city office on the ballot. We have 2 citywide offices, mayor and comptroller, that will not have an incumbent running for re-election. We have close to, I think, 40 city council seats that are going to be opening up, and it is just a huge, huge election cycle. So we have a historic number of candidates. We expect to see a lot of voter engagement, a lot of voter turnout in this election, and we want to make sure that ranked choice voting is successfully adopted by voters. And as I mentioned, these are just where those special elections are. You're in Queens, so you know your districts, I'm sure. And I just mentioned these primary elections as well. Actually, this is the link to our RCV FAQ page at nyccfb.info/RCV FAQs. One of the things that we have learned in our work in working with voters to craft our materials, a lot of people just need to know what to do. They kind of fill out their ballot and they're like, okay, cool, I got it. Some folks do want more information. Wait, how are votes counted? I went into that a little bit today. And then some people really get into the weeds and they want to talk about every single scenario of ranking candidates, of how votes get counted and things like that. Those are the things we're going to address in the Train the Trainer presentation. But this is just where you can go to that ranked choice voting page listed first, is basically, the taste of ranked choice voting, which I mostly gave you today. The FAQs are a deeper dive. And finally, this is contact information if you have any questions around ranked choice voting, if you want to be directly connected to resources, if you want to figure out how to do this work in your communities, how to tailor it for your audiences, things like that. NYC votes at nyccfb.info is our general email address. You can contact me at amelillo@nyccfb.info, and I'm happy to answer any emails. And that's it for my presentation, and now happy to turn it back to Dr. Saeed and the folks who are moderating for Q&A.
Thank you, Amanda, so much for that very detailed presentation. And we're now going to open it up to Q&A, as you just said. And I'm going to turn it back over to Borough President Richards to help with this section. And we're going to be looking for your questions. So floor is yours, Borough President.
Thank you, Dr. Saeed. And I want to thank the CFB for such a great presentation. I think, anytime something new is upon us, we get nervous, and rightfully so. And there's still a lot more work that has to be done to ensure that voters are educated. But it really starts with forums like this. So I want to thank Amanda for being here tonight and really simplifying it for the public for the most part. There's a lot more work to be done. I'm going to go to community boards, and I see we're joined by many of our district managers and chairs tonight. I'm going to go to them if they have any questions. I cannot see if you raised your hand at the moment. So one question, and we'll start this. I'm going to go to James, CB9, and I want to thank our community boards because they play an integral part in keeping our city running, and they don't get the credit they deserve. Also want to thank my staff who's on as well, and I'll get to them a little bit later. But let's start with James, Community Board 9.
Thank you, Mr. Borough President. We appreciate you putting this forum together. The CFB for giving us a great education on ranked choice voting. I just have a quick question about ballot positioning. Does that process still remain the same with whoever the candidate submits petitions first, gets the first position on the ballot, or is it more of a lottery type situation? Thank you.
So that part of election law remains the same, just in terms of how candidates get ordered on the ballot. So ranked choice voting does not change that.
Good question. All righty. Any other community board members have questions on this? All righty. I don't think I see anybody's hands up. Alrighty.
Can move on to take questions from the people attending the webinar that have been putting them in the Q&A if you would like.
Okay. Go to Q&A. Alrighty.
And I can help moderate as well if you like.
Great. Okay, great. Can the can the PowerPoint slides be increased in size? I'm sure we could send that. We're going to put these on our website, so just look out for this. As long as my counsel says we can. Let me make sure before I commit to that we get clearance. But I guess I'll go back to Amanda to just give what's the website again.
Yeah, you can go to our website at nyccfb.info/RCV. All of the graphics that I included in this PowerPoint are also on our website if you want to spend more time looking at those and just sort of absorbing those as well. And yeah, we are happy to sort of create this as a PowerPoint PDF and hand that out as well.
All right, great. I'm going to go to Alan Sherman next. I'm heavily involved in Council District 24. People come to me often with neighborhood issues. If few people really want the ability to write in 5 names instead of 1, this allows more options for the voter. Can this be implemented for future elections? I think this is for the municipal elections, but I think the answer is yes to that. I'll go back to Amanda just to answer that.
I mean, here's what I would say. Almost anything can be implemented in future elections as long as the right levers are pulled. So in order to implement this, I think that the city charter would need to be changed. And the methods to change the city charter are either such as this, through the Charter Revision Commission, where the question went to voters, or the city council can update the charter, and those questions typically have to go to voters as well if they are election related. So I'm sure there are methods to do it. I also don't want to talk out of turn too much because I don't know if the Charter Revision Commission actually did contemplate this and ultimately had some reason for why they didn't do it this way. But I think it's an interesting question.
Is this in lieu of primaries? Naomi Altman asked that.
No, so we are using ranked choice voting as a voting method in primary elections. So primary elections still exist. It's just that now the way we vote for candidates in those city primaries looks a little bit different.
Will this recording be available online? Yes, it will be on the Borough President's website, and we have a YouTube, I believe, channel, so go back into it. 50% on first ballots is over. If you go to a second round and someone gets 50%, is it over or do you have to continue? If so, why?
That is a great question, because in New York City, yes, we're going to continue. That's not true everywhere. Sometimes in other places, they wait until someone gets 50% and then it's over. In New York City, we go until we get to that top 2. Now, we have done the math, and it turns out that once someone gets over 50%, they're going to end up being the majority winner anyway when the votes get allocated. But the reason that we go to those top 2 is to make sure that the winner has the broadest base of support possible. You know, it doesn't have to be done that way. I kind of like it to be done this way, to know, okay, these are the last 2 folks in the race. This is who got the most votes by the most amount of people. And I think, you know, I guess it remains to be seen. We have 35 candidates registered for mayor, so let's see how this works out. But I think it shows at the end of the day, like who has the broadest base support in their community, in their district, or of the city.
Only 35. All righty. Will the
I think
raw
we got
voting...
another one today. It might be 36.
Okay. It's been a fun day. Will the raw voting data be made readily available for anyone of the public to access online, similar to how NYC has open source data portal? Will you be able to sort and view as we like, by district, by candidate, by race, by first time voter, etc.? This is from Ron Britt. And I'm just going to be good in one, I'm not going to give people 2 questions, just one question in the chat.
Ron, that is a great question. I'm a big data person, and we make a push for data transparency, so I'm really happy to get this one. So the Board of Elections is the agency that's responsible for maintaining the voter file and also election data and results. I don't have a good answer right now as exactly how they're going to be releasing ranked choice voting data. I'm pretty sure they are still figuring it out. We are working with them very closely and talking to them frequently to try to get the most up-to-date information. But what I will say is, like, at the Campaign Finance Board, we take a lot of data and we do a lot of analysis, and then we often post our data on the open data portal that we've taken even from the Board of Elections to try to figure out what voting participation looks like in New York City. We have a lot of interest to figure out how this goes the first time around, because we want to know, did voters understand this? Did they adopt it? Are there some places of the city that adopted it more than others? So what I'm going to commit to publicly is we are going to be doing a deep dive into that data to figure it out. And I will talk to my team about making the data available.
Okay, I'm going to go to some raised hands quick. I see Phil, Konigsberg. I'm going to go to you for questions, and I think I do reserve the right to cut you off if you get crazy. Anybody. Not that Phil is going to get crazy. So Phil, go ahead. Can I hear? Do we unmute him?
I did. I allowed him to speak.
Oh, go ahead, Phil. No, he's still muted, I see. I think he's still muted.
Okay, I got it.
Here you go. Hi, Phil.
Let me get my respirator off. Okay, so question is, I understand if the highest vote getter is not 50%, so then you go down and you eliminate the lowest vote getter. But what happens in the strange and rare case that the lowest vote getter, there's a tie. Two people are tied for the lowest vote. What happens then? Thank you.
I'm so glad. You're actually not the first person who's asked us this question, and I'm also glad for that because we had to think about it. So this is a really strange thing in election law, but in the event of a tie, it actually goes to a coin toss. So in the event of a tie here, it goes to a coin toss. That is just like a fun relic of elections from like the 1800s or something like that.
Wow, who selects the coin? I'm playing. Okay. All right, we're gonna go to Yvonne Reddick for a question now. Yvonne Reddick, CB12. Is she still on? Is she on? No? All right, we'll go to Shalisa Dean. Shalisa Dean. Yvonne left us. Shalisa Dean, we'll unmute you.
Thank you so much. My question is, with this ranking, with the ranking choice here, are we kind of weeding out now who will re-enter the race in future, sort of thing? Like, because I find it to be so widespread. Like, meaning that yes, it's great that we do number 1 and number 2, but by the time you get to number 5, it's like, all right, what's happening here?
So just so I'm going to repeat your question back to you. By ranking candidates, does that mean that we're actually weeding out candidates at the front of how many people can run in the race?
Yeah, it's kind of like in a primary, but
What's going on?
Even for the person themselves that are running, are they then going to have this information to say, you know what, it's now worth it for me to come back in this race again?
I'm going to answer this question 2 ways because I will admit I have never been a candidate for office. I have never contemplated running for office. So I'm not sure what level of calculation will go on for candidates of should I jump in this race or not? Does it make sense for me to put together a campaign and to try to run for office? So on the one hand, I suppose anything is possible. On the other hand, what we are seeing in real time is that we're actually getting more candidates registering for office and not fewer candidates registering to run for office. So I think a lot of people are actually looking at this and saying, hey, maybe I have a shot, whereas I might not have had a shot before. As I mentioned, we have more than 35 candidates registered for mayor. I'm pretty sure we've never had that many candidates registered to run for mayor before. We tend to see anywhere between 6 to 12 candidates in city council races. We are at the upper end of that in almost every city council race. So I don't think people are getting discouraged. I think more people are jumping in.
Thank you for that question. I'm now going to go to Marjorie Clark Woolridge. Marjorie Clark Woolridge, and then we have one more question and we're wrapping up. So Marjorie.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome, everybody. Could you please re-clarify how the reallocation of votes works?
Sure thing. Should I pull up the PowerPoint slide again?
Sure.
Because I think that's the easiest way. Pull it up. It always takes me back to that. All right, share. Okay.
And while we do that, Lorinda Hooks. Hi, Lorinda. I went on to the website to sign up for the Train the Trainer training to explain to the seniors at my senior centers, but I'm unable to locate the sign up link. Can somebody put that in the chat for her?
I will do that once I answer this question. I will go pull that up if someone can just remind me in the chat.
No problem.
All right. From current slide. Got it. Sorry about that. It always takes me a minute with all the buttons to find my place again. So in this case of no candidate reaching that 50% in the first round, when their votes start to get reallocated. So here, this is a really simplified example. We're actually working on graphics of what it would look like for more candidates. We use 4 candidates in this example just to explain the concept. So let's say that you as a voter had voted for candidate D. Candidate D was your favorite. But candidate D was only the favorite of 12% of people who voted. So candidate D lost this race. What's going to happen is candidate D is going to be eliminated. And all of the people who voted for candidate D, their vote gets reallocated to their second choice votes. So for people who, let's say I voted for candidate D and then candidate A was my second favorite candidate, the person I like the next. My vote, once candidate D is taken out of the race, would then get moved to candidate A. And this continues to happen until you reach a top two. So in this instance, you can see once candidate D's votes get reallocated, this is sort of how it breaks down. Each candidate gets a few more votes. Then candidate C is the lowest ranked candidate in the race now. Candidate C is going to be eliminated. So all of candidate C's votes then get reallocated to the next top choice. So this is the part that's a little bit complicated for these folks here who rated candidate C second. Their votes go to their third choice candidate. For all these people who rated candidate C first, their votes go to their second choice candidate. So it's like, it sounds like a lot of numbers, but you just got to think of it as if you're crossing someone off the list and moving your way down the list. So then candidate C's votes, all the votes for candidate C get reallocated to who ranked candidate A and candidate B next, until you get a just very clear winner at the end. So I hope that was clear. I know this is the piece that can take a little bit of time. It's just thinking about, okay, once my candidate, my first choice gets eliminated, where does my vote go? We sometimes talk about it in two ways. A really useful way to think about it is if you physically pick up someone's ballot and then move it over to their next choice. We often do things on computers, so our ballots aren't like stuff that we physically handle anymore. They actually do in Ireland, weirdly enough, but that's one way to think about it if it's hard to think about, all right, where does my candidate go next? Another way to think about it, like I think about it almost like list making. I like to make lists. So if I ranked my candidates from first to fifth, and then my first choice got eliminated, just cross that candidate off the list, and then my vote goes to who I have second. And those are just a couple different ways into it if ranking votes isn't your thing, or thinking about how they get counted isn't your thing.
Thank you for that. And then if you could just put in the chat the train the trainers for Lorinda Hooks. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, that was really helpful. Thank you. I knew I was going to forget.
That's why I'm here. Yeah. So, and can you just spell out that website too for everyone, and then we're going to close out. The website for Train the Trainers. Where do people go?
This link handily available. This is only as fast as my Google skills, apparently.
That's all right. It's been a...
So I'm going to drop this in the chat first, because I will be the first to say this URL is not my favorite. We should shorten this. So just in case you can't see what's in the chat, you can go to nyccfb.info, and then it's /NYC-votes/ranked-choice-voting-trainings. That's why I say it's not the friendliest URL to share. But I'm sure we are happy to send this as a follow-up to everyone who RSVP'd afterwards if you're interested in attending that longer training. We do them every Wednesday at lunch from 12 to 1:30, and then every Thursday night, we call them our happy hour trainings. They run from 5:30 to 7. And you'll either see me or my co-star, Ali Swadek, presenting, and we do long Q&As and lots of discussion.
Great. Thank you so much, Amanda. There's nothing like happy hour trainings, by the way. So, great. So make sure, I'm going to go to Marie for the last question. But make sure if you're interested and need to get to your networks, this information, vital information, make sure you go to that website And, the CFB and the Office of Civic Engagement have been more than willing to get this information out. So we all are duly deputized following this webinar to make sure we get this information out to our community boards and to our respective tenant and civic associations and networks. Marie, last question. Comment.
Actually, I don't have a question. You explained everything very well, but you misspoke. You said backslash, but everything is forward slash.
Oh, sorry. I always get those two mixed up. You're absolutely right. It is forward slash.
Thank you for a good presentation.
Thank you, Marie. That's why we got community boards. They keep us on our toes. Make sure we get it right.
I know. I need it sometimes.
No problem. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Saeed to close us out. But I just want to thank the staff here at Borough Hall who put this together. I want to thank Carolina Gill. I want to thank once again Amanda from the CFB. I want to thank Dr. Saeed. I'm like going down the list of where's my staff at on here. Brianna Mulligan, thank you. Maricela, who is our Director of Community Boards and Constituent Services. Chris Barker, and I also want to thank Tiffany Easton, who's our new events coordinator, and want to thank her for the work she's done. Hope I did not miss anybody or I'm going to get fired later. So with that being said, I'm going to now turn it back over to Dr. Saeed, and I hope everybody got some good information, and stay glued to your TV tomorrow like we all will be. Thank you. Have a great evening, and I'll turn it back over to Dr. Saeed for closing remarks.
Thank you so much. And thanks so much to everyone who asked all the great questions. And if you have additional questions and you want to follow up in any other way, please definitely feel free to email us at info@civicengagement.nyc.gov. And also Amanda shared her contact information. So please do reach out. Don't be shy about asking any question. And also want to ask you to please help us spread the word for next week's training, which will be held on Tuesday, the 26th at 5:30 p.m. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today. And also thank you so much, Amanda, for sharing all of this great information with us and how we can look forward to checking out or looking at our ballots and what they'll look like and how we can make choices accordingly. Want to thank Borough President Richards and of course all of your fantastic staff for hosting and partnering with us on this event. And I'd like to just close by saying, on the eve of the presidential inauguration and one day after Martin Luther King Day, may we all recommit to being active participants in our communities and our democracy. And today's training is part of that commitment. So thank you again for being here with us. And for sharing all this great information. We look forward to staying connected with everyone.
Thank you so much. See you out there. Have a great evening, everyone. Be safe. Mask up.